What's going on, everybody? My name is Jeremy Vicious Lopez. I am a commentator for the Capcom Pro Tour, as well as the in-game commentator for Street Fighter 6, and this is Ask a Pro. All right, the first one, the tag is @MaseNoKen. When did you know you could do this as a living versus just your love of the community hobby? Do you remember when you made the official full dive into professional commentary? Boy, do I! I'm gonna answer the second one first. It was as soon as I felt like I hated my actual job. I was an accountant for about like 2 years in Irvine. And I feel like that was like the time where I kind of stopped playing a little bit professionally, right? I didn't devote as many hours as I usually would for fighting games, particularly Street Fighter 5 at the time. I wanted to pull my hair out. So hence the baldness. That job stressed me out so much, and I was like, you know what? We're gonna try to do this commentary thing. I still enjoy the game too much. I still love being around the community, and we'll kind of just like stick with it. It took about like 4 years for me to like consistently say, all right, well, I put myself out there enough. I could actually quit the job I'm doing now and just like focus solely on this. @not_your_hat. What do you think makes you the most favorable commentator host out of the others? Am I the most favorable host or commentator? I don't know. One, I'm gonna rebuttal that with, I don't think that's correct. Secondly, I think it's more so me kind of building up a repertoire of like availability in the early years. I think that's the most pivotal thing you could have as a commentator, is being available for the job, right? It kind of like sets you up for your resume. It lets a lot of publishers know that you're like willing to like do events, and also over time as a commentator, you think to yourself, all right, well, I have all these like kind of jobs now. I have like all this footage of myself. I can actually use that to better myself in the long run as well. So I don't really know if I'm actually the most favorable. I personally love like Yipes and Tasty Steve, so I don't know. @CaptainNoFun_G. All right. What's your favorite way to build chemistry with someone you're commentating with for the first time before you go live? Just to kind of talk to them about the game. You know, like every time I kind of see like any sort of schedule, and I know that I've never really commentated with this person before. One, I would kind of look them up to see what their flow is like and adapt to them and make it as comfortable as an experience for that person, depending on like how they want to commentate or kind of like put themselves out there. Make sure we kind of just talk to the other person as just a person, right? Somebody else in the community, someone they could also share their passion with and like talk to about like games and players, and be like, yo, did you see what happened in pool so-and-so? Or did you check out the sick play that happened earlier today? We could talk about it if you want. Keeping it a more like personable experience rather than just professional. @Splututu? Question mark? How do you create synergy? Being able to pass to each other during a set, knowing what to banter about between you and your co-commentator, especially during situations where it's your first ever meeting. This one's actually kind of a tough one. I kind of just like to feel the vibe and see whether or not they're gonna kind of continue the conversation with me. Like I'll usually throw up the alley-oop and see if they're gonna slam dunk it, in a sense. If it's like any sort of like funny moment that happened on stream, we can like hark on it for a little bit.
Thanks for hanging out and compliment everybody for Street Fighter 6. Make some noise!
There was no enthusiasm from you.
You can see it.
From you. These guys, they killed it. You were just like,
Thanks everybody.
Other than that, it's more so just like knowing how to keep like a flow of conversation and treating the other person just like another person. This name is great. @Perry Manilow. I love Mr. Manilow. I really do, man. As someone who's done some casting for Marvel Snap tournaments on a smaller scale, how would you recommend continuing to pursue that path, and what would be the next step? This is actually super great. I think Marvel Snap is a great game from what I've seen. I haven't been able to play it because I do not want to invest that kind of time because I'm a card game sucker. What I do recommend though is, now that you have that footage, create a reel for yourself. Create a way to advertise yourself to other people or other publishers to be like, hey, I've done a game that's similar to what you're trying to get out there. Put me out there, right? I think that's you already have a great start with something so popular and so fun. I personally have a reel that I've like fine-tuned every year, as I've had to try to keep up with like everybody else. But it's also a really humbling experience because I personally hate hearing myself speak. It's like a 2-in-1 where it's like I would listen to a previous job that I've done to figure out where I need to improve on, but also take the highlights of it and put it into a reel. That's a little cheat code for a lot of those that are kind of like trying to figure out how to put the reel together. It's like, or like how to improve. It's kind of like two birds with one stone. It's like, all right, well, you gotta listen to the VOD. At Who is Rhythmic, not me. How do you figure out the mechanics and notations of a game relatively quickly? I don't think I am a fast learner. I'm pretty sure I'm not a fast learner. However, my years of playing fighting games have really carried the hell out of me. I think I was lucky enough to understand like how a game works to like a more thorough degree because of the friends I've hung out with in the community, and also playing competitively to understand what happens when I'm watching any sort of like high-end event. But in regards to the notations and stuff, that's just grinding it out, man. That's simply looking it up on the internet. There's a lot of resources out there. I know Infilament has an amazing glossary. Street Fighter's kind of simple, I think. Crouching low medium kick into like a fireball, it's pretty easy. But it's mostly just like getting yourself familiar with the game at the end of the day. At Kid Liquid. Looking at these two moments from Evo and Combo Breaker, it's interesting to look at the body language and handoff for the winning moment. Once you realize the winning moment is happening, how are you deciding in that moment who gets the call, and how are you conveying that in real time? A lot of it comes down to recognizing the situation of when you know the critical moment is happening. I will say from Evo, because I'm so familiar with the way that Yun plays, this is a very specific example. I know that he is a glass cannon, and I know in certain moments where he's gonna get blown up because I see Chun-Li on the screen. She only needs like 2.5 hits, and Justin knows it as well. So if you look specifically at that Evo clip, as soon as the reset happens, I think to myself, two things can happen here. Either Yun blocks or he gets hit. If he blocks, we have another couple of seconds to determine who's gonna do the winning moment. If he gets hit, whoever is talking about that hit is gonna take that moment because you won't have enough time to explain anything else. So as soon as I recognize that moment, I felt like I talked to Justin about this. Time froze as soon as Yun went for like the little airborne reset that he gets off of getting hit. As soon as it hit, I slapped Justin. I said, you know what? That's all you. Bring it home.
Low forward meaty, and it is MOV, your third strike, Evo 2024 champion.
The second one, however, there was a little bit of a scramble between myself and Yipes because Yipes already knew it. He was signaling to me, he's like, hey, there's only one mix-up left. We were kind of like treading a fine line where we were both kind of like talking a little bit. Then we stopped. You could see it in the clip too, where we both stopped. And then as soon as we couldn't figure out who was gonna be like talking, Yipes, he immediately started slapping me, so I was like, all right, that's the signal. I'm just gonna take it home.
El Chicote taking it down, your Combo Breaker 2024 champion!
You have to understand, this is not a Commentator X with Commentator Y show. It is both of you at the same time. You have to understand that this is like a shared segment. This is a two-way street. You have to like reciprocate and also understand like when to not talk over a certain person as well. Stephen Main Vox. I recognize this name. This name is very heavy with the lore. Gameplay, story, design, or anything else, what is the one thing you've always wanted to talk about on commentary that you've never been able to do? I don't think I've had any real restrictions on commentary in regards to what I can talk about. I feel like there are certain beats where you have to understand that you can kind of talk about it. I've definitely talked about different types of gameplay. I've talked about story within players, story within like events that have happened throughout the years. I've even talked about stories in regards to the game itself, like the actual lore. Design, I've hella talked about character design and stage design, even sound design. One of my favorite things that helps me in commentary also, specifically with sound design in Street Fighter, you know when a light, medium, or heavy hits. Sorry, dude, that's all I got. Because I get to talk about anything as long as it's within like certain limits, I think. At Jatsu, with so many events each week, tech being discovered and new player stories being built up every day, how do you manage your time, especially between keeping up with the scene, studying the game, keeping up with your own non-fighting game hobbies? This one I attribute to having a Twitter. I think it's a very, very big thing for professionals in the scene to have social media, not a social media presence per se, but following along with some of like one of your favorite players that are hot right now, events. Keeping up with the scene is mostly just watching as many streams as possible, keeping up on social media, and really trying to curate your own timeline to what events are happening or if there's like meta being developed. I know which handful of players to follow as soon as a new character comes out because they break them down so well. And it's like Momochi, Goichi, Sakonoko, and then for any of the cheap stuff, I look towards Mago and then Kazunoko. Then the rest is just kind of like fall in line. That's usually like my top 5 that I go to. Then for like the American side, then I'll watch like Sejam break it down. I think that's the easiest way to do it is like, Sejam has such a really great mind for games too, so it's like, be sure to follow all these cats that I just mentioned. So that's like the easiest way to keep up with tech in my opinion. Keeping up with my own non-fighting game hobbies. Yeah, I don't. I'm totally kidding. I play a lot of the One Piece card game right now, and I'm also playing a ton of Deadlock. I kind of segmented off like a part-time job, 4 hours of playing fighting games or watching streams, taking notes down for the day. Then I'll get distracted and someone hits me up for like a game of Deadlock, and then I'll get distracted even more afterwards towards the evening where it's like, hey, you should practice your TCGs and stuff. Learn to segment off parts of your days and dedicate it to like the craft as much as possible. It's something that really needs to be done to get yourself in the habit of what you need to be doing as a commentator. That's awkward with a Z. I won't tell you where the Z is though. What was your most challenging event to prepare for, and what is your favorite, most memorable event you've cast? I've done so many over the years. I want to say the most challenging one was the year of COVID. We weren't getting as much information, we weren't getting as many events, and we weren't getting as many players that we're used to seeing for a Capcom Cup. So specifically, this was like the Capcom Cup of COVID, where it was all online. Easily one of the hardest things to do because you won't be able to get like the same type of energy. There was a lot going on at the time of Street Fighter V where you didn't have like the best net code too. So all of those types of elements put together made it really hard to prepare for and really hard to like call at the same time as well. My most memorable event right now is the anniversary of Third Strike with Justin. This is the game that was very near and dear to my heart, and that's actually the game that got me into the fighting game community. And I happened to be casting it with the person that I first saw get their butts whooped. Sorry, Justin, I love you, brother. The first video ever that got me into it was obviously the Moment 37 video. And I've made that known too. So that easily is gonna be my most memorable moment for years to come because I love that game. It's done so much for me as a person. It's kept me out of trouble. It's taught me a lot about life. It's taught me a lot about like the friends I keep and the kind of relationships I wanna build just because of being around that community at the time. At my simp, but it's MAI. It's not like my simp. It's not like there's like no ownership to it. It's maybe like my's simp. Or it could be my's imp, I don't know. I'm trying to start doing commentary. Any tips or advice into starting? Boy, is this a broad question. Play the game that you're planning to commentate, like really kind of dive into it. Play the game and try to do more than just like dabble in it. Try to understand like what's happening in the game. But at the end of the day, make it something you enjoy. Please, for the love of God, don't do it just to do it. I've 100% turned down a bunch of commentary for like Tekken, Guilty Gear, and like a bunch of other games just because I couldn't spread myself so thin. And I felt like once I tried to do it in the early stages, I'm like, okay, this is stressing me out. I'm gonna stick to just one game for now because my brain cannot process all of these things, all the tech, and I can't execute things, and it stresses me out. You know how hard it is for me to wave dash on P2 side? No, P1 side? See, I couldn't even get the sides right. Keep it professional, find your own voice, really get involved in it, watch a lot of streams. Those are like the main things to kind of like keep in mind. But there's also a really big one that I think is pretty funny. I've seen this tweet, like literally replied right below it. Hey, Sejam's done a bunch of tips on commentary and how to get started. You can check it out down below. That's all I got. Wow, this was a lot, actually. I was very surprised you guys, if I'm gonna be honest here, you guys actually gave a damn about this because I don't know if people like me or not. I mean, that's cool. That's why the one question that threw me off the most was like, what do you think makes you the most favorable commentator? I'm definitely not. And that's not me being humble. I mean, statistically, I feel like that's maybe. But I appreciate you guys for coming through on Twitter. I've seen a lot of notifications from you guys. I'm glad you guys are very much so involved with like the commentary aspect of it all. And I wish you the best. Always feel free to contact me via email, Twitter, hell, even on streams. I mean, I'll be up there as well. Be sure to DM me. But that's pretty much it. This is Vicious with Ask a Pro, and hope you guys learned a lot today.